Section 6 of Harper's Young People, Volume 1, Issue 3, November 18, 1879. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Diana Schmidt. Harper's Young People, Volume 1, Issue 3, November 18, 1879. Continued from Number 2, page 15. The Story of a Parrot. So many months had passed since I was stolen from my beautiful home that I was already a bird of considerable size. I was brought on shore by a sailor, who took me to a dismal place in a dirty, noisy street, where I found several hundred other birds, parrots, canaries, Java sparrows, and many kinds I had never seen before, confined in small cages. The confusion of sounds was dreadful, and I was sorry to hear that most of the conversation was the most malicious gossip. I was received with shouts of derision, and indeed my appearance was as wretched as possible. My feathers were soiled and broken, and I was overcome with sadness. The air of the place was stifling, and although the man who had charge of me gave me enough to eat, my cage and feed dishes were so dirty that I could not taste a mouthful. Some of my companions showed sympathy for me, and I found a sad consolation in chatting with them. But for all that, the days passed wearily, and I often wished myself dead. My cage was sometimes placed upon a long table in the center of the room, that I might be inspected by various persons, from whose conversation with my owner I learned that I was for sale. How sadly my thoughts flew back to my poor parents, who would certainly have died of grief had they known of my unfortunate condition, and that I, a free child of the broad African forest, was about to be sold into lifelong slavery. So bad-tempered was I, for I plunged furiously at everyone who approached me, that no one wished to buy me, and my owner would often say, "That African imp is only fit to kill and stuff." He might kill and stuff me for all I cared, and I made no effort to control my temper. At last, one day, a very kind-looking gentleman came in, and stopping before my cage, began to admire the rich color of my plumage. "All he needs is care and kindness to make him a fine bird," he said, and I soon understood that he had ordered me sent to his house. From that day I might have had a pleasant life, but my malicious temper was destined to bring me much farther trouble. My new master appeared very fond of me, and did much for my comfort. I was allowed the liberty of a fine perch, well provided with clean new feed dishes, but, to my intense mortification and disgust, a chain was put upon my feet. My perch stood near a large window, but heavy curtains prevented me from getting more than a single peep of daylight. I saw my new master only for a short time, morning and evening, and the solitude was terrible. I sat alone day after day, believing myself to be slowly dying of sadness. I wished that my life could be one long sleep, for when my head buried in my feathers, I went to the land of dreams. I lived again in the forest where I was born. I saw once more the noble branches of my native tree, and heard the rushing waters of the mighty river on whose banks it stood. I breathed the perfume of thousands of wild flowers. Crowds of brilliant birds came hurrying to comfort me. I saw again my father, my mother, my brother, and my sister. I believed myself free once more. Alas, sorrowful was the awaking from all these delights. "Are you happy?" my master would say. "Have you eaten your breakfast, Lorito?" Yes, indeed, I had breakfasted. I did nothing but eat breakfast from morning till night. I grew very fat, and what was worse, I became so stupid that I repeated like an echo all my master's words. "Have you eaten your breakfast?" I would scream. and my master would laugh and toss me a lump of sugar. That was my only recreation, to repeat my master's words and eat sugar. I was gradually losing all sense of honor and truth, and to be praised and get a lump of sugar, I would rest my beak in my claw and say with a languishing air, "My head aches, let me alone." My head did ache too sometimes, remembering the days when I knew only the language of my fathers, when the sweet voice of my mother waked me in the morning to pass a happy day playing with my brother and sister. Solitude and confinement had soured my character. The rings of my chain hurt my feet, so that they were becoming swelled and inflamed. I hated all the world. When my master filled my feed dish with dainties, instead of gratefully accepting his kindness, I would seize the dish and spitefully overturn its contents. All day long I screamed as loud as I could, and it gave me the greatest satisfaction when once a policeman came running in great haste to inquire of the housemaid if there was any trouble. "That horrid Parrot," I heard her say, and I laughed as loud as I had screamed before. One morning my master entered the dining room, in the window of which stood my perch, followed by a lady and 3 beautiful children, who rushed toward me eagerly. "Be careful, Hope," said her father, as the smallest of the 3 stretched her little hand toward me. "That fellow bites like a savage." "Poor Rito, he won't bite me," she said sweetly. But I know I would have done it then, had not the children's mother astonished me by boldly taking me on her hand. "Poor Lorito," she said, "look at his feet." They were all red and swelled. Anybody would be cross, left all alone on a perch with his feet chained together. She then gently removed my chain and called the housemaid to carry the perch with me upon it to her sitting room, and to prepare a dish of wine and sugar to bathe my feet. When I found myself alone in the sitting room, and had time to think quietly, I realized that a great change had taken place in the house. 3 children had come home, and my solitary days were over. They might tease me, perhaps, but at least they would be company. Another thing, too, I realized, and that was that for the first time I was free. I looked around the room. It was light and sunny, and I could see that it was filled with various pieces of handsome furniture for which parrots have no use. You may be surprised, but to my mind a branch of a tree in a wild forest is infinitely more beautiful and useful than all the fine furniture in the world. I began slowly to swing myself down from my perch with the intention of making a close inspection of the room. I am almost sure that at first I was more curious than malicious. But alas, I had scarcely started on my voyage of discovery when I perceived a small blue and gilt bowl standing upon the marble hearth. It contained the sweetened wine ordered as the healing bath for my feet. The fragrance was so enticing that, forgetting the good precepts my mother had taught me, I dipped my beak into the bowl and took a long drink. Nor did I stop so long as a single drop remained. No sooner had I swallowed the contents of the bowl than I felt a strange burning sensation in my head, which seemed on the point of dancing away from my body. I was possessed of an intense desire to fight something, and I gazed eagerly around the room in the hope of finding some enemy with whom I could engage in mortal combat. I saw no moving thing in the whole apartment which I could attack, but unfortunately my eyes fell upon some shining brass nails which served as ornaments round the edge of the table. To my heated imagination each nail seemed glaring directly at me, menacing me like the evil eye of a bird of prey. I rushed madly toward the table, and climbing up on one of its legs, I seized a nail in my beak. To my great delight, I found I could easily pull it out, which I immediately did, and threw it spitefully away. With yells of triumph, I crept all around the table, clinging with my claws and tearing out nail after nail as I went, until every one of those aggravating, glaring eyes lay scattered over the carpet. Although I was victorious in my violent battle with the nails, my spirits were not yet calmed. In looking around for a new victim, I saw a bottle standing upon a table in the center of the room. The old saying that he who drinks once will drink again is one of the truest proverbs, and I no sooner discovered the bottle than I made all possible haste to reach it, hoping that it contained more sweetened wine. To be sure, the liquid in the bottle was very dark colored, and had an unpleasant odor, but in my eagerness I paid little attention to those things. I tried to taste it, but the mouth of the bottle was too small for my beak, and all my efforts were in vain. In my rage I vowed revenge, and screaming loudly, I threw the tantalizing thing with violence to the floor. Alas, my ill behavior was sadly punished. The bottle I had overturned was filled with ink, and I was splattered from head to foot with the vile black mixture. My beautiful plumage, of which I had been so proud, was ruined. I was both horrible and ridiculous. In this miserable and forlorn condition, I climbed back upon my perch, and in a most wretched frame of mind waited to be discovered, and perhaps punished. To be continued. End of section 6.